so much. You've given me your word as my eternal soul. When it comes to you, Lord, nothing compares.
Came to the Lord at the age of 9 and had a really neat mentor that I still have today. And he ministered at the juvenile prison about 50 miles from town. And so I would go up there with him. So even as a young kid and early teenager, I was going to the juvenile prisons and doing whatever door God opened.
You know, anybody who's been in jail knows it's not a very happy, pleasant place. It's a stressful place. And I was on a floor of the jail. It was pretty intense, people under a lot of pressure. And at some point, I was realizing I need something. There's something missing from my life. And I noticed they were calling people to religious services in the jail. And it was like daylight. It was like, am I in the same building? I sent a note to that volunteer chaplain. When I met him, he shook my hand and he said, "Michael, my name's Don, and I just want you to know I love you just the way you are." He says, "I don't know what you're here for, it doesn't matter to me. I love you the way you are." I've never encountered that kind of love before. He finally said, "Do you want to commit your life to Jesus?" God spoke to me then, and what I realized was, if I don't do this now, I probably will never do it. My heart will never be open again. And so I said yes.
I've really been through some drastic times. I was out on Heartland Island, December 17th, 2004, in the middle of a double murder that was supposed to be a triple, with nobody around to help. I had no guns. This man had all the guns and plenty of bullets, and had just killed my friends in front of me, one of them on me, and I broke. And I cried out to God, "Oh God, please, I don't want to die." I was saved, and I was one of God's children. The Lord has really been my shepherd.
The only reason why I had any faith at all was because of my mother. Been in prison for about almost 2 years. I really didn't have an understanding what love was. Had a small concordance, and I used that for my guideline. I didn't set it down for 3 days. It's unconditional. There is no strings attached to it, and it's given freely. And my whole life, there was always something for something. I felt relief at that point, that a burden had been lifted.
I was running cocaine from San Diego up here, involved with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Had an individual soliciting the apartment while we were in there with a lot of illegal things. After the third time of him knocking on the door, I yanked him in. He happened to be a Bible preacher and teacher. I thought he was a Fed, some kind of a federal officer. Yanked him in the room, held him at gunpoint while we searched him, convinced me he was a pastor, he wasn't a cop, that he didn't care about the drugs that were there or nothing, and tried to tell me that I needed Jesus. Long story short, ended up in prison on a murder crime. I ended up obviously involved in a lot of drug traffic inside the prison, this and that. I had my roommate lock me in the room so that I could, break out the stuff and weigh it out and whatnot. And out of the blue, everything that man had told me in that apartment building started coming to my conscience and my mind. First time really I'd been slowed down enough by God himself in a cell there to where I felt guilt, condemnation, all the things that you should feel over killing somebody. And I thought if I said a little prayer, it would go away. I bowed my head. 45 minutes to an hour and a half later, my roommate's beating on the door trying to get in. I'm still on my knees praying and crying, and it really comes down to it, man. The Lord is my total hope and provision day by day. What has he rescued me from? Myself.
I was a little freaked. You know, obviously I was still so strung out on the drugs and the alcohol that having all, in my view, and I used to say these Jesus freaks all showing up, and because of an associate of mine that I knew through music, even finding out and just having this big old prayer thing for me. And that's when I got saved and accepted Christ into my life. Because prior to that, I had no personal relationship whatsoever with Jesus. I was baptized in a bathtub, and 2 weeks later hit the penitentiary. I started going to the church, started reading my Bible. The journey started there to come to a place where I could truly understand the sacrifice that was made for me, as if I drove those nails, because in truth, my sin put those nails. My sin brought those stripes. My sin caused that suffering. And yet, he went anyway, for me.
And it's his love that we want. It's his love that we need. And it's his love